Hello, and welcome to Life Lessons with Barbara. I'm your host, Barbara Elleen Johnson, and I bring to this program a ton of credentials and decades of professional experience that you can check out on my website. But more important than all that, I bring me and a desire to share with you what I've learned from almost 70 years of life experiences. Some I've mastered and some I'm still working on. Allow me to be your master life coach for the hour. And while you think about it, sit back and enjoy the fabulous Lois Lady Mac McMorris, lead guitarist extraordinaire. Go girl. Listen as she plays her signature piece, After the Rain. While you're enjoying the amazing Lady Mac, let me tell you what I have in store for you. This show, Life Lessons with Barbara, will be all about life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how to get the best out of whatever it deals you. And I promise you, we will not close a segment until we find that morsel of truth, or that silver lining, or that nugget of wisdom, no matter how deeply it's buried. You're going to hear from me each week. But from time to time, I will interview some pretty incredible people who have their own stories and victories to share. Life Lessons with Barbara is supported visually by my transformational life coaching and consulting company, BEJ Associates. To see what you've been listening to, or to find out how to buy your own copy of Lady Mac's After the Rain, or to find out more about the company, go online to BEJ-Associates.com. In the meantime, stay tuned, and thank you for spending this time with me. Hello, and welcome back. You have tuned in to Life Lessons with Barbara. And this is the second show, the second hour of my program, my programming. So anyway, I'll get it together. You'll see. Just bear with me. Okay, so this is a continuation of my life story. And for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, the idea was to let you know who I am. You know, all that really had an impact on me, I'm sharing. I want you to know what you're getting. I'm a life coach, and I have chosen to be one because I feel I have a gift in helping others develop skills of resiliency, because life happens to all of us, and we all pretty much have a cross or two to bear. And sometimes it's how we react to those challenges that cause us even more challenge, even more grief and unhappiness. So I'm just kind of going through my story. And the first time, for those of you who haven't seen the first couple of segments of my program, the first full program was in 2 parts, 2.5-hour parts. So if you missed that, you can go back. You can see or hear those 2 stories on my website, and that is BEJ-Associates.com. And actually, it's not up quite yet, but it will be by this weekend. And let me say, for those of you who are coming back, who heard my first show and are now here to listen for the rest of the story, I commend you and I thank you. And I ask all of you to bear with me because I'm going to get good at this, but it's going to take me a minute. So in the meantime, I want to get back to the story, and I think I left off with, it was kind of embarrassing to share, but eventually that issue worked itself out. So if you're curious about what I'm talking about and you haven't heard the first program, then go back and listen, especially at the end. So starting from there, I needed to, I'm gonna really try to be succinct, you guys. I swear, I have an awful time when I start to tell these stories. I feel like I feel compelled to give you background and stuff, but I'm gonna try to resist that so I can get through it and so we can move on, because I've got a whole lot of wonderful programs that I want to share with you. But this is the getting to know Barbara part. And this is program number 2. All right. So before I go into it, and I think I left off with junior high school and a couple of traumatic, one especially traumatic situation. I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit and tell you guys that I have a sister, and I just really spaced it, but she's coming back into my story later on. So let me tell you about her. If you will recall, those of you who heard the beginning, my grandmother had this land, and eventually the city made her an offer she couldn't refuse, so she sold it and got a lot of money. Well, also, all along, actually, my grandmother was developing a really big problem with alcohol. So when she sold her land, she quit her job, which was kind of holding her down and keeping her on track. Without that job and all that money and resentment towards my mom, all of a sudden, we don't really know what happened. The next thing we knew, she was in the projects. And there was there were a lot of people hanging around her that we didn't know. And I assumed they helped her spend the money that she had made. And one of those people was pregnant. And my understanding is that she had had a child before, and she just couldn't afford to keep this one as well. So my grandmother volunteered and said, I'll take her. I'll take the baby. And so when the baby was born, it was a girl, and her name was Deborah. So Deborah is my sister. Deborah came into our family when I was about 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old. And because my grandmother had issues with my mom, and I think it's because mom was trying to save her from herself, we weren't around to really get to know Deborah for several years. So in her early years, she was with my grandmother, and we knew that she was in danger. We had heard that she had been locked out of the house, and out all night as a little child, and those kinds of stories came back to my mom. So anyway, to make a long story short, and just to I always say that. Okay. She grew up pretty much with my grandmother until my grandmother's, total decline. And institutionalization, I think she went into a convalescent home or a nursing home or something to that effect. So when all this happened, I had already relocated. But anyway, that's my sister Deborah, and you'll hear about her a little later. So I'm going to try my best to stay to the script. I've already described junior high school and how we were on top of the world because we were running the school. We had Black teachers, and they were pumping us up and telling us how much potential and how much potential we had and all the things that we could accomplish, and it became really cool to be Black in America. And so we go off to high school with this mentality. About high school, I'll tell you quickly. I promised my mom, well, actually, I had no choice. She wanted me to go to Central High School, which was a college prep school. She had attended it. She dropped out after the 10th grade because she didn't have, the right clothes to wear or something like that. But it was her heart's desire that I go to Central. Well, my classmates, my dearest friends were either going to Tech High School or North High School, and a few of friends who I was not as close to, also went to Central with me. The thing about Central was that it was predominantly white. There were very few of us in comparison. And we came to learn that they weren't just your average white folks, although that's how they looked to us, but they were Jewish. And it turned out that the Jewish people were also discriminated against in Omaha, Nebraska. But they were running the school. They were in the majority at the school, and they put the school on the map academically. So here I come. I barely have, basics because I went through elementary school without being able to see, and junior high as well. So speaking of the seeing, let me just throw in that once I got 16, I got a job and I was able to buy a pair of contact lenses. So from that point on, my vision was okay and I did well in school. But anyway, I'm going to Central, still blind as a bat, and not wanting to be there, and realizing that we were locked out of everything, the organizations, the clubs, the cheerleading squad, the pom-pom squad, and all the things that, made up being in high school. So for the first couple of years, I was a part of the group that broke down a lot of those barriers. And let me move on because there's a whole bunch of stories about that, but I'm going to skip them. So that's how the first couple of years in high school went for me. So that was my freshman and sophomore year. So when I got to, the summer between my sophomore and junior year, my mother put me in this beauty contest. And needless to say, that was the last place I wanted to be. But in hindsight, I was very grateful that she did. She had worked so hard to make me okay. So she puts me in this contest, and I did not win at all. But my cousin, another cousin, Kathy, got me this date. I guess my mom told her to give me a date, and he was the most gorgeous. He was a senior in high school, and of course she was a senior too, or a junior, and so she talked this guy into taking me. And I mean, he was so popular and so handsome and all of that. And I didn't say a word the whole time. He bought me a really nice corsage, and it really gave me a lot of, cred to be escorted by him. So that was a little highlight I want to throw in there. Going into my junior year in jumping up to high school. Yeah, I was already in high school. Okay, so in my junior year, at the same time or sometime around then, the athletic department at the university, Omaha University, it was called, it's now University of Nebraska at Omaha. But anyway, back then, the coaches or whoever were recruiting all these athletes from New Jersey, different towns in New Jersey mostly. I think maybe a couple from New York, but mostly New Jersey guys. Well, here we are, here in Omaha, all secluded and isolated, and had no idea of what was about to converge on us. But anyway, so all these guys from New Jersey, black and white, were coming to our parties and things like that. And I caught the eye of one guy. His name was Reggie, and he was a wrestler, and he was a good-looking guy, and he was pledging Kappa and all that. And I'm a junior in high school, and I was oblivious to all these things. So it was like, wow, mind-blowing. So that kind of, perked me up a bit, and I started going, because finally at age 16, my mother told me that I could date and all of that finally. So I started going to those parties. Got to know Reggie pretty good in my junior year. And so I asked him if he would be my escort in the cotillion in my senior year. And he agreed. So, yeah, okay, something like that. Anyway, that was the significance of my junior year, is that I kind of connected with the college crowd and was, attending their parties. In Omaha, even though these guys with their swag and that East Coast accent and all that, they were pretty good guys. I think because they were athletes, they were real careful about, drinking and that kind of stuff. So that was really not a part of our culture, even though we were partying with the college kids. And so in my senior year, that's when I asked Reggie to be my escort to the cotillion. And so he agreed to do that. And that was like in September or something. And we started spending time together at the parties and things. So we were kind of going together, as we would call it. And anyway, a couple of my so-called friends, I found out, had been, had seduced him, because they were sexually active and I wasn't until I was 18. And so, but that made me think, I remember precisely when I fell in love with him. We were walking down the street, and a couple of dogs were running towards us, barking and looking really vicious. And so, and this was at night, and I started to run off, and Reggie caught me and grabbed me and told me to get behind him, and he started kicking these dogs and everything, and I was like, wow. And then the owner came out and called the dogs off. And I just, oh my goodness, I thought, oh, my hero. I fell in love with him that very moment. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. So, so during my senior year, I thought, oh, wow, after the cotillion, we go, out to party or whatever, that was going to be the time. And I was going to, give myself to Reggie. But as much as I tried, he continued to, hold me in great respect and kind of held me, at bay. And so he managed to leave Omaha and go home for the summer without my virginity. So I was like, bummer. So my freshman year in college was around the corner, and so I was determined. The guys usually all went home for the summer and at Christmas break. So they all come back and we get back in that groove. And now I'm on campus because I'm a freshman, not caring at all about school. Glad to be out of Central. Almost didn't make the opportunity to graduate with my senior class because I just didn't have the time to read A Tale of Two Cities and some of the other books that we were required to read in literature class. So I had I got to get the Cliff Notes and study those, but apparently I wasn't the first one to think of that. So I still couldn't pass the exams. I passed barely some of them I just outright flunked. And so I was really sweating it at the last minute, but I got that D-, yes! And I was able to graduate from my class. So anyway, so I made it to college and started college with everybody else. As a matter of fact, I went to summer school before I got to college because somebody recommended that because I was so terrible in math. And it was going to be a requirement for my degree at that time. Was supposed to be in education. So on campus, like I said, I didn't really care a lot about school. So, if I was playing, I mean, we had the student center, and let me tell you, I have to tell you this really quickly. Okay, as far as us going to college, wasn't much of a leap from high school because we just caught the bus over there by where our high school was and went straight up Dodge Street on the bus, got off the bus, and then we were at college. There were no dorms, so we missed all of that part of college life. And there were some of the guys, especially the ones from out of town, that had their own places and stuff, and so we would go to their apartments for parties or whatever. But mostly, I tell you, all through my growing up in Omaha, the community leaders, the churches, everybody made sure that we had plenty to do. So there were always activities and things scheduled for us, and even into college. So my senior year, finally, I mean, in my freshman year in college, finally, I get what I went after. But the problem was, and it was almost immediate, Reggie started distancing himself. He became really scarce, hard to find. And I was forever asking his friends, where was he? And nobody ever knew, and all this stuff. And so that was hurtful. That was hurtful. And then, Christmas break came. He went off to New Jersey. And that new year, he brought back a wife and a 4-year-old daughter. So, needless to say, I was blown away. And I really struggled that semester because, I was in that, I was grooving with with my peers at school, and it was just too painful. So I got introduced to a guy on a blind date, and his name was Anthony. Anthony was like something else. He was in the Air Force, I believe, or maybe it was Army, I'm not sure. But he came home with a bullet wound that just barely missed his heart. And of course, he played that up and got a lot of sympathy from everybody, including me. But it wasn't because he was doing some brave thing in the name of, liberty, in honoring, the country or whatever. He just stepped in front of a bullet that was meant for someone else when he was at a party. And that kind of right away kind of summed up Anthony at that point in his life. He was a partier. He smoked and he drank, and of course I was going to try that. And he was kind of cute, and he was older than me, and he opened up a whole new world. So now I was hanging out with adults and doing what adults do. So and that just got really, really overwhelming. So all that partying and all that drinking, and then I'm showing up at school every now and then, and really about to flunk out. So I quit. I quit school somewhere in my sophomore year, in the first semester of my sophomore year. And eventually I got a job working nights. I was working from 11 to 7 because I just couldn't take it anymore. And I just needed to give myself a break. So I started working at a bank, and as a proof machine operator from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And I met another great friend. Her name is Teresa. She was from New York and had relocated to Omaha. I think her husband was originally in the Air Force, and they liked Omaha and decided to settle there. So, and also, I was just kind of wanting to date other guys. I was a little overwhelmed with Anthony, and he was, he was very much possessive of me, and that was uncomfortable. And I was getting close to age 21, and my mom had to move out of the projects. So I helped her buy a house. And then once she got this cute little house, she wanted to decorate it. And she was telling me all the things that she wanted to do with it, and with me working and her working, we could, change out the carpet. We could do this, we could do that. And I just decided, I said, this is not what I wanted my life to be like. And this is not okay. So so I said, I got to get out of Dodge. So I know I tried the Air Force and I tried Union Pacific Railroad. I needed to get out in a way with a job, some way to take care of myself. And so I went to those I tried out for those kinds of things. And of course, the Air Force didn't take me. I think because they really didn't want to take women, and so they said I was too short. I should be 5'6" or taller, and I contested that, and then they got me with the eyes. They said you have to be able to see without your contacts, at a certain level, and I couldn't, and so they were able to reject me, and so anyway, I didn't give up. A friend of mine said, guess what? United Airlines is looking for Black stewardesses. So I thought, oh, that's the ticket. That's my ticket out of here.
Well, it turns out that that was my ticket out of Dodge. Lo and behold, United Airlines hired me. Now, it wasn't that there was not some twists and turns and a lot of drama that led up to that, but I'll spare you all those details. The fact was that, yes, I was on my way out and headed for Des Plaines, Illinois for training. I excelled in the training program, and it was the first time in my life I had an inkling that there was any indication that I had any smarts. I ended up in the top of the class when we graduated. I had every intention of settling in Colorado. That was one of the major bases close to home. I had family there. That was perfect. So I didn't bother to hang on to much money because I figured I'd be set. Well, it turns out, wouldn't you know it, Colorado didn't open up. And so I went into a panic, of course. Uh, this other girl, another Black girl in my class, and it's just three of us. One of them, she said, well, you could go to DC, and you could stay with me. You could stay with my mom and me. And, and you could just stay with us until you could get on your feet and all that. And I got excited and I thought, oh, wonderful. But then she started taking my things. And when I confronted her about it, she, of course, uninvited me. So here I was on my way to DC, Washington, DC, where I had no money, no place to go, no one, and knew no one. But even in that period of my life, I learned a few life lessons. I'll tell you about them later. Let's listen to Lady Mac again. So I went to